Policy Committee to order. And our first order of business is the proposed elementary athletic activity program. Michael, do you want to go there or is Stan going to go?
Dennis taking the lead.
I can just, yeah, so we're looking at trying to get, focusing just on athletics right now, trying to get our athletic programs better. I can speak on behalf of being a former coach. I was a better coach when I had better youth programs. And when they were weaker, you get the hand you're dealt. We used to have this, I can go back from when I was in the district in the mid to late 90s, we had this because I coached in these programs out of college. But it was, they had, we have more sports now than they had then. But they offered sports every 4, 5, 6 week programs. They did away with those. I don't know why they did away with them, but they did away with them in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I wondered about, because it says continue.
So there's stuff in place right now. So realistically, and I don't know how it is with the budget and everything from the big picture on, but there is stuff in place to have these programs and to have coaches. The problem is we just haven't addressed it and made it a priority to say, let's get kids involved at a younger age. Like I said, this is focused on athletics, but you could take this to anything, into theater, you could take it to anything to get kids involved and expose to things, because reality is it comes down to a numbers game. The more numbers you have to choose from and you move those kids along, the better chance you're going to have as a program overall. And I think positive to that is also, and I just noticed from coaching with kids, is you got something to hold over their heads, because when these kids have something that they're linked to and they relate to and they identify with at their school, if you have any behavior issues, this is a pretty easy one that you can hold over their head. So I think it can accomplish a lot of things. I mean, ideally, like I said, it's to get our athletic programs more competitive. I've said this, we're playing De Pere tonight, one of the top teams in the state. They have a very robust youth program. And our coaches are trying to do those things. I think we can help them along just with where we are socioeconomic. We can help and get a lot of kids exposed for a very minimal cost. And a lot of this is already, should be factored in our budget. It's just not being tapped into.
So I think it's, I played sports in that, but I just think it's absolutely good for the kids to run around and, get up off their ass and start playing video games. And, But to team play and to do the rules and all that sort of stuff, and once in a while win and feel a sense. So I'm in favor of the program. I was wondering if there's more than one team at each elementary school.
I think it's going to depend. So here's going to be the challenge, and this is what I know now being back here, and I think this is coming out over the last 4 or 5 years. We got to get people to coach these or to supervise them. That's going to be the key. So with that being said, a couple of things that we've had in mind is, and I've talked to some principals about this, was I will talk with the principals, but the reality is the principals at the elementary schools, the parents know those principals. And they'll be the ones out in front saying, if we need someone, try to get even parents to step up and help out or whoever it might be, provide these opportunities. Or the other one would be maybe Katie's not necessarily qualified to coach one of these things, but she'll be there to supervise, and we can get some high school kids that are in those sports to come and supervise those.
Referee.
Yeah, to work with the kids, but we have an adult there to supervise them. So then they can get service hours, however you want to do it. There's multiple ways, but I think those are some of the details those are going to be some of the challenges that we need to get. It's going to be the staffing of, because some schools have them, some schools do not.
So,
Really?
yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I was going to say, it's a great idea. The great struggle at grade schools, which I'm quite familiar with, is getting the coaching staff, because you have kids who always want to participate. And the other struggle that you have is people who want to coach who don't have a good understanding of how to. So I would hope that a companion to this will be working with the coaches to simplify down what skills they should be working on, what they can do, because unless you have somebody who's motivated to go out and read on their own to learn how to do that part of it, enjoying a game, speaking especially for myself, enjoying a game like basketball is it completely different from coaching a bunch of kids in basketball. Then you've got to sit down and either teach yourself it or get some guidance from somebody else. I was lucky enough to do both.
So what we have is, sort of coaches right now, we've gotten a number of our coaches are starting to do this with some of the encouragement. They've done it before. Some of them are doing it already, others are doing it now. They'll bring parents in and basically coach the parents on the fundamentals.
Oh,
What they want.
okay.
And it's tiering it, so hey, if grades 3, 4, and 5, I want kids to know this. Grades 6, 7, 8, they should know this. And then when they get into high school, there's a foundation there.
Because gym teachers know what is reasonable for an expectation for coordination and endurance at age groups that other people don't. So it's that support is going to be vital.
So, and you would know from when you were, teaching whichever school you were at, like my wife ran the running club. She never ran, but she was there to run with the kids. And it provided, and I think one of my classmates' kids got interested in running and he ended up going to state. It's just, he might have done that anyhow, but he was given that opportunity over at Franklin. And, that's just one kid, and that's coming from someone that did not have the qualifications as a running coach, but she was there, just to run with them.
One of the things that's important is we can fund this through a grant. Right.
Really, yeah?
Yeah, we already have this grant set aside.
Yeah.
Katie, do you want to?
A little bit. So, I think we would be remiss if we didn't also talk about the importance of, connectedness and engagement at an early age for students and the outcome and impact that has on achievement, and mental well-being. So one of the state has a significant initiative to support school districts in supporting mental health and mental well-being and school connectivity. So we received approximately 31 and some odd cent dollars per pupil this year to promote mental health needs in our school district. And some of the allowable expenses in that are things like engagement activities, school connectivity activities, curriculum, social emotional curriculum, those kinds of things. So increasing youth programming for after school is one of the allowable expenses. So we would be able to completely fund that through these mental health dollars that the state has awarded us, which I think is a really cool way to use those dollars.
It's a no-brainer then. I move we bring it to the board.
Oh, sure.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, a couple other things. I did talk to Lee today and I talked to Stan about it's basketball, football, soccer, volleyball.
Running club, because that's already.
Right, and part of it is perhaps in the second year, we could run
Oh, yeah, right.
3 weeks of tennis to introduce kids to other
Oh,
activities.
yeah.
Wrestling, I talked to the tennis, Bob Feller, who just retired, and there's a whole program where they can introduce kids at different ages to tennis, which is, again, it's the well-being of the kid, it's getting them up, getting them active. Maybe that's something they like and they take it up.
Yeah.
The swimming program has talked about doing
Yeah.
Saturdays.
The swimming program has some pretty good stuff right now, ideas that they have. That's a little bit different beast because you obviously have to have certain skills to be able to get into the big pool.
Yeah.
We do have the pool river review, and they have a plan in place that you will test to see where you are. And if you don't test, you'll be over a river review and you can learn how to swim. It would be a minimal cost.
Oh, that's a great,
Go
that's
for
a great
that,
idea.
but I think that's a life skill that
For swimming lessons type?
yeah, that you could get, but the cost is you have to have so many lifeguards per students, and so it would increase, like these costs here, it's a pretty simple, you have a coach there, whatever they're paid, where that gets a little bit trickier because you have the coaches, you also have your lifeguards.
The only other thing I would like to see as part of this program is speaking of the team that we're playing tonight in basketball, their basketball program in grade school, they don't have teams like an A team, a B team, a C team, a D team. They teach all the kids all the skills, and coaches come up the night of the practice and they go, hey, we have a tournament this weekend. And they circle 10 kids to go on their team. So there isn't that, this kid is really good in
Oh,
fourth
wow.
grade, so he's going to be the stud. They just treat everybody the same until they get older when they start,
Is it East Pier or West Pier?
it's East of Pier. And
East.
I know Bayport is doing that now and other schools. So the well-being of the kid and just getting them active, and maybe they find out they like something and then they take it up. So it's a good program, and I think a good way to.
I think it's, like I said, I can't answer why it disappeared. I don't think it should ever.
I did, yeah.
You know, but it's been probably gone 20 years.
No-brainer.
Any other discussion on this? We have a motion and a second. So all those in favor of the elementary athletic program signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And we're
If you
good
guys
to
have a
go.
chance, come over to the game, you're gonna see some, our team playing, there's some really good players over at the pier, so. It's gonna be a really good crowd. and Good atmosphere, so. Set it up. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. Number 3 on the agenda is the proposed addition of 2 special ed parents.
Move to approve.
Approval?
It's kind of a no-brainer.
Kind of a no-brainer. Holy wow. That's quite, both of them are, really
Are very
challenging
much needed.
situations, aren't they?
I don't know, Matt, I don't know if you were able to read any of that.
Yeah, I've actually been scanning ahead as you guys are talking, so I'm caught up. It looks good. Like you said, you can't, these are things we need and you can't,
You can't not do it.
Do I have a second?
not even a just.
I have a second by Supervisor Board Person Trask. Sorry, I was on the county board for a second.
I just very much
Supervisor
appreciate
Trask,
your
not going
support. Our teachers very much appreciate your support. These unexpected transfer-ins can present some challenges, so thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And is complete. Number 4. I am not a good writer, but I sent you out the letter after the meeting I had with CISA about our superintendent search. At the board meeting, there's 11 people from different districts that represent their districts, and we are going through the process of picking a new person to run CISA 7. And there were 2 presentations, one by the National CISA Board and then one by WASB, that came in and said how they would do a search if they were hired to do this. What was probably most important at that meeting was the discussion that happened after. 2 of the districts, of the 11 districts, hired somebody, an interim or just somebody within their district who everybody liked, and didn't go beyond that. And within a year, that person was gone as the superintendent.
Oh, yeah.
All of them, even those 2, supported getting somebody from the outside to look for somebody for CISA. The reason being, we have 3 qualified people, and they said, well, if you pick somebody, how do we know that they're the best? We don't. The companies that interviewed went through their process and talked about how they would background check. They also do other checking by phone call of people who work within buildings and classrooms and in offices and custodial staff on how somebody has been at their building or how somebody has been in their district. So it's more than just that police background check. They go a little step further to find out how the person did. Well, through those discussions, out of the 11, there was not one person who said that they would do it within house because there's too many outside things that come up during the process that then you have to stop and get answers and find out how to move forward. For these WASB or CISA 7 does it. They have a plan and they've done this before. They also, one thing that that I was interested by was the fact that they advertise all over. They'll advertise nationally if you want. The other thing is that they will give you who they think is better in your pool, but they give you all the information so you can still go through anybody else's applications that were turned in for your job as superintendent. This is nothing against the work that Lee is currently doing. But we have to be sure he's the right gentleman. If he is, by comparing, we have to be sure in the process that we get the right person who is going to lead the school district. And yes, there is a cost. I believe the cost is probably $12,500 to $13,000 to get this
Your
done.
thing said 10 to 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the next thing I did, I talked to a former superintendent of our district from a while ago. And his answers mirrored the answers of the school boards that I was there talking with that night, that the same thing, you have to make sure you get the right person. You have to be able to compare good candidates. That made me think, are we going down the right road by trying to do this ourselves? None of us have done this. My thought is maybe we should look at a company, WASB, whoever. I probably wouldn't do CISA 7 right now just because they're going through a transition with leader. But there's other businesses, groups that do this. This is not an easy process, picking somebody to lead a school district. We have to make sure that we have the best person doing that. And that's why I'm bringing this to personnel. If our discussion is one of let's put this onto the board and let the board decide, it would come out of the personnel committee. But I worry that since we haven't had this experience, we are going to do it correctly and get the right person.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, we really have to do it well, because this legitimizes the person that gets the job. I mean, it's not an old boy, kind of a good old boy kind of
Who did we have
appointment.
get all of the last one we hired? Who went through and found all those candidates for us last time?
I don't remember the name of the firm,
Was
but,
it CISA 7?
but Joe,
Joe Sheehan.
Joe Sheehan was the one
Sermons, I'm not sure.
that handled that.
Keith, you know?
Prior to that, he worked for Administrative Associates, but prior to that, for Mr. Holzman was Ray Associates. Ray Associates was one of the 5 that we looked at after Marcia had retired. One of the 5, the process was the board had the Office of Human Resources submit 5 search agents. Those 5 search agents were interviewed by the board. The board then selected Ray Associates and a PhD, Dr. Decker, who taught administrative leadership at the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, was the liaison between Ray Associates and our board. So after the board appointed Ray Associates, he was our designee. He did all of the background searches. He did all of the filing. He met with the board. He developed the process of what our objectives were, what sequences we were looking for, what this district had. He developed the profile for the district. Ray Associates did all that. We told Ray Associates our parameters. We said, go nationwide. He did. Or you can say, go Northeast Wisconsin. You can say, just go Wisconsin. They do all of that advertising. They do all of the searching. They did all of the background checks, the felony checks, the certification checks, the whole bit. What then did come to the board was a list of 15 out of 65 applications. 15 were designated that met what we as a board were looking for. The board met again. Each candidate had a 15-minute interview. via their video. The board voted on a rubric, voted down to 5 candidates. That's the process of bringing those 5 candidates into 4 teams the board had developed for interview process.
How did that company know, or how did you get the information to them as to what you were looking for?
They met with us after we selected the company. And the same thing, same process I went through in Sheboygan. After we selected the company, based on what they were going to offer, they met with the entire board and said, okay, here's plan on 2 hours. I'm going to get your goals, your objectives, the whole bit. What are you looking for? Da, 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 da. Then they do the posting.
That was very clear at this other meeting that they will sit down and help you decide questions. And if you have questions that you want included, they will include those. But they take all that information from the board and it's part of their process, so.
We had somebody do that for us. I know, it was long, drawn out questions upon questions and writing things out and getting it figured out. And then they came up with a list too. I just don't remember who it was.
Chris?
Yeah, we had this identical discussion as the executive committee back at the end of November. And I said then what I will say now, which is one of the most important jobs you have as, in fact, maybe the most vital job you have as a member of the school board is hiring the superintendent. I do not believe in abdicating any of that for somebody else to give me their top picks. I will make my top picks myself. You may not have done this before. I have. I have hired people all the way from Sony, all the way through the library. I've interviewed people. I've done the process. I'm not concerned about the process. I'm not sure what they're referring to when they tell you things come up that you have to check. But most, I'm honestly frustrated. And the reason I'm frustrated is because after we had that meeting, I sent an email to the chair of this meeting and explicitly asked that we have the job description and the salary range on our next personnel meeting, because we can't start anything without addressing that first and foremost. The December meeting was canceled. It was not on that agenda. It is not on this agenda. If some of this is being driven by a concern that time is ticking away, that is not being caused in any way, shape, or form here. So I think it's our job. I won't abdicate my responsibility. Honestly, I can read 65 applications in a weekend and sort them out between those that should get a screener interview and those that don't. I've done it for 80 when we were looking to hire a city attorney. So it can be done. I'm not saying it can't be done.
Okay.
But again, you're a full board, you get to make that decision.
That way.
But
I've done that. I've chaired search committees in the university, get a chancellor, get a vice chancellor, get a couple of deans, things, and we did it on our own. But I must say, I'm kind of in between the models here. I'm with Chris in that I don't want them to pick the people for it.
Yeah.
We've had, well, at least where I work, we had to get rid of administrators with some regularity because honestly, the information that we got, I think that we need to do, we can benefit from their background checks, et cetera, et cetera. But I think we need to push it even further than that. And not just look at 65 applications with letters of recommendation, shit like that, stuff like that. Because, honestly, you get them and they do a really good interview and you hire them and like 3 weeks later you think, what have we done? And I really think that we need both. I think we need a headhunter process that does some sifting and winnowing for us, who does the legal background checks and does some other background checks as well. And then I think we need to even do more ourselves. And so I'm in favor of I'd be in favor of hiring WASB to handle the mechanics. To handle the mechanics for this. I mean, that's pretty cumbersome.
And maybe I stated that wrong, but you get everybody that applies.
That's not necessarily true, depending on the agency that you go to.
Well, through WASB gives you everybody, the ones that they weed out, you just still get to see them. So it's not like you have to take who they give you.
That is correct. WASB,
Yeah.
the last
WASB
time.
or Cecil?
That was WASB.
Yeah.
Because
gave
WASB
you-
is 9 to 15. Okay,
Yeah, I'd be in favor of
that's the
hiring
range
that.
they gave me.
Okay, so you see everybody that's applied for your job.
Yeah, that's the only part I don't like about other people is that they get a mass amount of applications or resumes and then they decide.
No, WASB will not. WASB is the only organization outside of the 5 we interviewed. WASB will do your solicitation, they will do your advertising, they will set your district profile, but you get the applications. They will not screen and sort out the
You
applications.
get to see them.
You get them.
Okay,
That doesn't take anything away from us, does it,
Right.
Chris?
no?
But then what are they doing? Why aren't we just
Oh,
advertising?
it's just
You
the
can't-
infinite amount of
you-
mechanics that are
You can advertise directly through WASB. They will offer that separate from their search service. Yeah.
I think it's a way to get this moving.
I think
it's a way to get it done.
advertising as many places as
We
possible.
already
is
have,
good.
when you ask for the superintendent job description, we have that. It's been here. Now, we haven't updated that. Is it supposed to get updated?
Well, we could.
Okay,
Okay, so it's there, it's already there.
But
As far as the salary range,
That's gonna be up to us when we hire.
so I don't understand, you're saying that stopped us from getting started.
the first,
At the meeting, Chris, at the meeting I was at, they said December is when you should get going.
yeah, well, I think that's the other thing too.
I understand you felt that you need to be on here. That's what I'm taking from your comments.
I'm just saying
Thank
that we gotta move.
I want to make a motion that we get a contract with WASB to handle the mechanics of this, and that we begin this search, no later than the end of January.
Is that something that, just weird stuff, later here, but is it a question, is it something that Lee puts his application in for, or we already know he's about that?
No,
type
he
of-
hasn't done that.
He has to put an application in, yes.
You are gonna do that, yes?
I intend to, yes.
I personally think we
I
can
don't
save a
know,
lot of money.
I have to ask Chris why he thinks we should skip that step.
I'm all
Well,
for
I might
advertising
get
with
us-
as many places as possible.
Okay.
Okay. As far as the other question that was asked, you always, when you're filling, especially the top positions, you should always review the job description and the salary range as the first step to make sure you know what you want to ask for in your ad. Because your ad should be driven
Right,
by
that's
the
true.
job description. It's exactly what I said back in November.
So I think what we should do is, we
I'm-
should hire WASB,
It's
and we should have a second meeting
Consensus.
to look at that stuff, so that we can really get this started before the end of the end of the month. There hasn't been a second to the motion.
I will second it for sake of discussion. And because I've never done this, for anybody who has done it, is there a reason just to go with WASB, or should we, I understand there's other agencies out there. Is that something we should consider talking to them, or?
Superintendent searches, each one of them offers a little certain something special that makes them unique. That's why both in Sheboygan and in Manitowoc, the two of the four that I were on, the two contracted 5 search agents. And then for Manitowoc, I was the designee. I interviewed the 5 people, brought them back to the board, presented their package. The board voted on the company. The same process that took place in Sheboygan. The board voted for one person to gather the information and brought it back to the board to them to vote on that information. Now, each agency has its own little niche. One cost to go statewide advertisement was different than this agency who only went to Northeast Wisconsin, or this agency that only went to Central Wisconsin or Midwest, depending on what the board was looking for, depending on their costs. That was the uniqueness. All of them, though, except WASB, deleted applications that did not fit our profile. All of them except WASB, when we developed our profile, said, here's what we're looking for, here's our district, here's our goals and objectives, this is what we want. When they read these, and you're gonna get a lot of crap. You're gonna get, hey, I was a teacher for 5 years, but I can run any district, yada, yada, yada. They would get rid of those. WASB, you're gonna get them. Okay, so they did that initial screening on a lot of the profiles that wouldn't stand a bad chance, and you know where, of even coming to fruition. WASB said, you get them. The other agencies did not. They took out that fluff. Now, if anybody that they thought we wanted, we got to take a look at. But WASB will give you all. Fluff to incompetence to PhDs. You're going to get them.
I would agree with Chris on that point. Then what are they actually doing other than advertising? I'm for advertising and getting all of it. I don't want to, how do you want to say it? I don't want to put this off to the point where first we got to search for a company who's going to search for this, and we have to agree on with this, and then it takes meetings after meetings after meetings. I'm all for putting in an advertisement and getting people to advertise it for us and go through the process that way. I mean, if you get them all, I don't mind searching through and reading even those. I mean, whatever it is to get it moving. I think that's kind of what
Your district advertisers, you pay for every advertisement. There is a cost to WASB unless they're in charge. If you want to go on an international superintendent search, you're going to pay dearly for that.
Well, right.
If you want to go on a Wisconsin site superintendency, you're going to pay dearly for that.
I also would like to throw in my input, and I've spoken with other board members as well on this too. And being that I went through this process in the beginning of my term, the Manitowoc, Wisconsin is one of a kind. And I mean, it's a whole different beast. We are not very accepting to people outside of Manitowoc, Wisconsin. So wherever it is, I don't suggest an international search.
Wow, not an international.
Right. I personally think Wisconsin statewide would be stretching it. Maybe
Oh,
even
you
northeast,
do?
even northeast Wisconsin. And if,
Why?
well, because it doesn't matter. They could be from Kewaunee, and you bring them in here and they're going to get slack for that pure purpose.
Damn, we could have a bigger poll than that.
Right. What I'm saying is Manitowoc is a different beast. You bring in the best person you can, but in actuality, one of the things that's going to help drive success with a new superintendent is having this specific community support. And that's why I've said it many a times that we may already have. Just saying. But that's just my opinion.
The last thing you said is the most important, in that we've got to get somebody who's going to come in to be accepted by the community.
Yes.
Okay. My concern is that having a firm help us search and get people in here, we'll find that. We may have that person already.
Yeah.
But if the community knows they searched and searched, and that person is number one, that'll make that job easier.
You're right, but whether you guys agree with it or not, the last search we did, we took forever figuring out how many questions and all of what we wanted, and we had meetings after meetings. I'm not sure if Carrie remembers, but we sat here and interviewed superintendents for hours upon hours in a couple of different days worth of meetings. It took forever. And we did do a search. And the community was not accepting. So what I'm saying is, whatever it is, the biggest portion has to be, honestly, in my opinion, it has to be somebody local.
Wow, I don't know.
But I'm all for it. Whatever we decide to do, let's decide to do it. Let's get it going.
I want somebody who's professionally competent, who's, honestly, you know, I think we need to, I would be in favor of a Wisconsin-wide survey. I mean, if we're bringing in people from Alabama or something like that, I could see why it might not be a cultural good fit. But, you know, I can't imagine.
Some of it is going to just be who applies. I mean, if you advertise in the right places, you're going to get people applying from, I'm assuming, the Midwest.
True. People who are looking to be a superintendent, though, I'd imagine they're pretty on who needs one.
But then you got to find that match. Do they fit here?
Yeah.
And that's why this is a huge process. In my head, after listening to, like I said, the people from those school boards, and it's like, it has to be done by people that have done this. You know, you've gone through it.
I've gone through it, and I also know Chris has it as well, too. I tend to side with him on the procedural aspect of a lot of things, because he's smart about that. So I think that I'm either way. Like, I just think that whatever it is you decide to do, let's move it to the board and get it moving. That period.
Well, let me just add, I don't know what WASB does or any of these other headhunters, but
Headhunters.
one of the I chaired a hiring a chancellor committee, and they not only like passively received applications and handled the correspondence and the checks, but they actually recruited people that they thought would be a good fit. And that would be something we couldn't do,
Right.
right? You don't think so?
Well, no, we can't do that.
We can't do that.
They will do that. They will say, they'll target, say, an associate principal in Wausau.
Right, yeah,
Or an associate superintendent in Wausau.
right,
They'll say, hey, you're part of my group. Why don't you take a look at Manitowoc? I'll send you the stuff.
exactly. yeah.
Or
Yeah.
the professor at UW would say, you're going through my program, you're going to be good. Why don't you take a look at Manitowoc? You'll be okay. So they will do that.
Yeah,
Those
okay.
companies will do that. Districts don't have that opportunity.
We don't, yeah.
No. And there may be that.
So it seems to me that we don't want to be so passive about this, but if we hire an agent to do that for us,
But Matt is
we
right.
can be much more.
It is time. It is time. It is time.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Chris thinks it's going to be so. I do not think so. If we're going to do the job of putting together our goals and our objectives and what we're looking for as a board, come to a consensus about that, it's going to be time.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot more time than
Absolutely.
receiving applications, going through and say, hey, this is who I think.
This isn't hiring, this isn't hiring a staff member. This is hiring the leader of the district.
Yeah, this is going to be labor intensive. You talked about working really hard to get an interim. I mean, I didn't think we worked all that hard, but I didn't have a job either at the time. But I think this is really a labor intensive process. And I think that if we can use an agency to handle some of that labor, then we can focus on the stuff that's really important for us to focus on.
What's the motion on it?
And it also requires communication. I mean, massive amount of communication. If there's no communication amongst the board members and it's stymies, if people aren't going to talk, you aren't going to go anyplace.
So the motion was to hire WASB.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's my motion.
Okay, and I second that.
And yeah, and to, really get this on the tracks by the end of the month.
I think we should discuss it as a board before we make a decision of who we're gonna hire.
What?
I think the whole entire board should make that decision.
Well, that's
Right,
why
this
it
would be a
be,
recommendation to the
it would
board
be
to do
forwarded
that.
to Tuesday night's board meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion?
It's still open to whatever we decide, right? At that point in time, if we recommended it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's all good conversation, but
It's just to get it in motion.
Get it going. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to go with WASB to hire them for the superintendent search, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay.
No.
Okay, so 2-2, it'll go to the board on that 2-2 vote.
I know. I'm voting for it.
All right. Takes us to board policies. Let's do this first because Matt, you said you weren't able to look at the policies unless you went through them real quick. But on the technical corrections, I'm going to turn that over to Lee to talk about because that concerns him more than it does us. So go ahead.
Sure. I just wanted to remind the board that the technical corrections, or maybe want to call them technical edits, are changes to policy that doesn't have any substantive change. And so we have a bylaw in place. It's 0131.1, and it's bylaws and policies. And in that policy, it has a section that deals with technical corrections. And I just wanted to point out that under the authority of the district administrator to put technical corrections into place when we are notified about them. And so technically speaking, they don't need board approval,
Why are you bringing them to us then?
just to let you know that they're changing.
So we don't
Just
need to
let
vote on
you-
this.
You don't need to. I've done it and put it on consent so that it's very transparent and everybody sees every little change to every
What are we
policy.
specifically addressing right now?
Technical corrections.
Right.
So these are policies, for example, that have grammatical changes, changes of renumbering of sections, changes in the policy related to citations of law that may have changed. So these really change only those things in a policy. So when we receive a notice from our policy makers that say there's a technical correction, we receive that, we review it, it's sent to me, and if it is deemed to be an appropriate change for us, we just make the change to our policy and then notify the board through the committee process. Technically speaking, though, it's not required to have approval, okay? So I just want to make sure that that distinction's made so that in the future, I can do that differently if we don't want to have it actually on the agenda, and I can just forward it to you as a communication that says, hey, folks, these are technical corrections, and we can leave it right off the agenda if you'd like. But I did think by putting it on the agenda, it also is a public display of what's been changed. And so if we're communicating with the public policy changes, it's one avenue to make sure that it's available to them. That was the reason that I had put it on the agenda.
Okay, do technical corrections include changing the name of the policy and the number?
Technically speaking, if the policy, are you speaking to a specific policy?
Yeah.
Which one?
The one about the, what do you call it? Lactating employees that I had issues with.
Oh, no, that was not a technical.
That's not
Okay,
technical.
that one has to come through the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Those
just
are
see that
substantive
on
changes.
here, and then there's a double on here. What is that 3213 and 4213? What is that about?
Student supervision.
That's 7 and 8, student supervision and welfare. Well, I can't remember which one is which, but the 3200 section would be different from the 4200 as far as staff versus support staff.
Put them in both because it covers
Yeah, it's probably right.
That's what I wanted to
That's
know.
probably
Yeah. I don't see that other one in here too that I
One
mentioned.
of them, 3,200 is maybe support staff, 4,200 is professional staff, that's right. Sometimes they're exactly the same, sometimes there's just a little deviation.
So what's the pleasure of the committee? Would you like me to continue to give you, through the committee process, the technical corrections, or would you like me just to send those two in a communication?
The technical corrections, is that basically the ones that you said before that you had a list of ones that were just like, what did you call them? You didn't say technical corrections, you said that they were,
Like technical
Mirror,
edits.
those were mirror.
Well, those were mirroring policies.
Yeah, they
That was
basically-
a strategy that we used to attempt to catch up.
Yeah.
That's a separate thing. That's a separate thing. We're done with those now, because we made it through all of those. So at this point, we're dealing with, either policies that we don't have that we should, or we're dealing with updates of policies.
Okay.
Between this month and next month, if we get through them, we'll have gotten through all of our old ones that we were very, very behind on. Yeah. Yeah.
So these are something we don't have to approve, but it's pleasure of the board, this committee, if
Yeah.
we want to take them to the board.
it's basically, like you said, technical edits.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Fine.
So what would you like to do? Just let him do it or take it to the board?
Yeah, the quicker we can move through these, the
Yeah,
better.
I think we should be informed. We don't have to take action.
Okay. Yeah, I can just send a communication with those to you. Instead of including them on the
Want that
agenda.
in a motion?
Nope,
Okay.
you just directed me to do that, that's fine.
It's already established.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Then the last item would be policies for introduction. And I know that,
Yeah.
Matt, if you want time to go through those,
No, I went through them. Yeah.
otherwise we would.
I mean, it's pretty minimal.
Yeah, those are.
It's pretty minimal.
Yeah, we're getting down to lower in numbers, we're getting a little.
Yeah, I would make a motion that
Motion.
we recommend to the board the approval of the changes
Well,
made
these are for
to
introduction, yes?
Yeah.
these.
First read.
I don't
So
know.
they'll go to the board.
Introduction is first read.
Yeah, move them to the board, I'll second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Yes.
I know I ask it a lot because I'm always confused because of all the different ways we've done it. So this is then the introduction. If we want to amend, we're going to do that at the board. meeting.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
All right, all right.
Yeah, well, it also could be amended here, and we could, so if you chose to amend policy in committee, and it is voted on favorably, what we would do is we would change that policy based on the proposal or the change from the committee to send to the board. So we would send a policy amended from this committee to the board if it was so done. So, I mean, you can choose to do that work in committee if you'd like. However, if you just forward them to the board has, of course, the authority to amend those policies on the floor as a whole.
Sure.
Yeah, these are some of
The
the
only,
most important
the only
policies.
change that I had any question about isn't a change by you guys, but it's on the student representation thing, under the part that's orientation of student representative. It says, an orientation meeting shall be held with the new student representative. Who's the orientation meetings?
Usually the district administrator.
Okay,
And I will tell you that I did that with our current representative in the month of September. Shortly after I assumed the role, I met with her and went over timelines, expectations, all those things. And then I just told her that we would meet quarterly just to check in.
okay.
Yeah.
Why don't we put that in there? I mean, we could put, an orientation meeting with
With the district administrator?
district
Yeah.
administrator, maybe.
Okay.
Specifies, it doesn't leave it sort of like, well, who's gonna do this?
So do you want to amend that now or do you want to amend it at the meeting?
Well,
Are you moving to
either way,
amend?
I don't care. I didn't make a motion. I just.
Make a
made
motion
comment.
to amend that and then send it to the board.
Right.
That's no big deal.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a big deal. We could do that.
Okay. Motion by Carrie,
Okay,
Second.
second. by Matt. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those in favor of all the policies? Chris?
No, if we're amending this one, we're going to amend all of it. Because this is the one that I'm concerned about.
oh, okay.
Also, it has in here, it refers to student council, and I believe ours are arising out of what Lincoln calls the student senate.
Yep.
So I'd like all references
Oh, yeah.
to student
Okay.
council
That's good. I didn't know.
changed to student senate. Um,
That's good stuff. That's true. I read the same thing, didn't think anything of it. I knew what they meant, but
Yeah, right. And I wasn't concerned because I knew I could do it at the other, but if we're gonna amend it, let's just get it to get done with. And that was the only part of it that I saw that we really needed, I thought we needed to clean up. was
It's written-
all references that say student church council should stay student senate. And I
141.1.
believe it is the student senate that actually elects the person too.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It says that, there.
Yeah, right, it says,
Oh, student council.
It's written several places.
Yeah,
in that policy.
okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Oh, so that's my motion to amend.
A motion to amend the student senate from student council, second by Matt. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So with those two amendments, we pass it on. Anything else? All right, so a motion to pass the amended article and the other ones to the board. Do I have a motion to do that, to pass these on? Motion-
I'll second.
Motion to move them on for approval.
Okay. By Chris and Carrie. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. That concludes our business. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, yeah.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. And we are adjourned.
It's just.